Heir, end of Innocence, but before that, a small context to it. Padma Kishori is the princess of Garhpundir, and she is forced to marry Uday Sanga, king of Jodhpur. And the need was that she had to secure fate of two kingdoms. Garhpundir, which was at the brink of economic disaster, and Jodhpur, which was moving towards a blood feud. So here is the story of Padma Kishori, and the backdrop continues from fourth generation. So the first chapter that I want to read, it's not chapter excerpt, is giving a backdrop of political and economical situation at that time. New pockets of power emerged. Between the folds of war and peace, society was fledging a newer possibilities. It underwent yet another change. The fate of Garh Pundir was so who was now without any ally. It was a challenging time for the rulers of Garh Pundir. A new enemy was emerging in northwest, a warrior clan that lived in complete isolation for eons was now getting ambitious. The clan had been attacking the borders of Garhpundi to expand their tiny little kingdom. The skirmishes turned into battles and then war. Decades of war had not only affected the political map of the kingdom but had crumbled the economy. But these were not continuous wars. Every 2 or 3 change of season, there would be an attack on the border. The warriors would attack and after a change of season or two would retreat only to attack another part of the border. Every battle demanded more spending on military. More arms and ammunition were needed. More laborers were required to dig trenches. More men were needed in armory and more physicians were wanted in infirmary. Every battle and its preparation demanded more gold and copper. So that was the context where the story begins. Now I'll take you to another section, page 91, which describes one more key character, Tamira, a mysterious lady who changed the whole history of Jodhpur and her relationship with the king Chitatma. One day, now just to add a little, Chitatma was a king who never wanted to be a king. He was poet at heart, very much like your character. One day, when Chitatma was camping in the outskirts of his kingdom, a dreamlike voice sang out through the clear air. The voice was coming from a small community of blacksmiths, punctuated by rhythmic hammering on the anvil, the blast of air and the roaring of furnace. The song had purity of red-hot bloom and the wilderness of a nomadic heart. These nomadic blacksmiths remained in any place for a spell of a rain or two. Their song had flavors and tongues of the lands they had crossed. The enigmatic voice was tasting the freedom of setting sun on the wings of orange and purple clouds. Chidanma followed the voice. The mistress of the voice was a young woman dressed in homespun rough Bhairni Vasani. Now, Bhairni Vasani is nothing but a ghagra. At that time, it was known as that. Dyed in black and lowly indigo. Cheap cowrie jewelry kept jingling and dancing as she sat singing the love ballad while bellowing the air in furnace. Spellbound Chitatma sat in front of her, stunned like a willing prey to the brown recluse. The singer, Tamira Kamaswani, was noticed the young man in kingly attire, held captive by her voice. She continued to sing, smiling and enjoying the undivided attention. Now a little backdrop of Tamira. Tamira was a collector, and that was what made her unique in the market. That day, Model had only one collector for the sale. Berry collectors, now I'm giving a backdrop of this set of people who are called collectors. Berry collectors were elusive free tribe, unattached to any kingdom, living in the deepest section of the forest. Their life was minimalistic and free will. Their souls were amalgamated with that of the forest around. They only took what they needed and never an inch more, and gave back whatever they had taken back to the nature. Rarely they lived in huts. They found hollows in the tree or tree houses or housed on the branches, better home than house. Sometimes they would hunt, but most of the times they would collect root, ferns, leaves, berries, and half-eaten, freshly killed animals. Hence the name collector. They lived free of all societal taboos and structure. They had nothing to do with the outside world. Their world was their jungle. They lived content and full lives in their own world. But they fought bravely and bitterly when any king tried to attack them in an attempt to include them in the kingdom. The collectors valued nothing more than their freedom. The jungle was their home, and they knew it better than any invaders. They beat any army that entered the jungle. Their main weapon was the uncertain terrain and dangerous path of the jungle. Pretty soon, the kings realized that it was not worth spending a good army on collectors. They left them in peace. As mainstream life forgot more about them, they became rare. Their way of living became primitive, ancient, and uncultured as eras progressed. Only a skilled tracker or a slaver would dare go looking for a collector, staying that far. Many were killed or maimed in the attempt to kidnap. But a price of a collector that would fetch in slave market was huge. Every now and then, temptation led one or two trackers and slavers to go looking for the collector, and a handful of collectors remained, and their price kept on increasing. So now, that was brief from different section of the book. The book that starts from the end of the Great War carries four generations, has different time eras, the story of Tamira, the story of Padma Kishori, Roop, Uday Singh, all of them a different philosophy, different mindset, and how few people like Avikam who come in for a scene or to change the course of the life of these people. So I'll skip one section that I had kept for reading. I would appreciate because of the kids here. So the last thing I would like to conclude this with: would Padma Kishori just accept the fate as it was? She was a mean to help these two kingdoms, Jodhgarh and Gulf, come out of the crisis that they were in. But does it mean that she will succumb to the circumstances, or will she follow the wild heart that was imprinted by Kamira Kamiswami? Will she accept the unfulfilled life, or she will go ahead and do whatever possible to secure the life she wanted? And to what extent will she go to secure her life and become the queen she was not meant to be? So that's some brief from the book Heir, End of Innocence. And I have another session from 3 to 4, which has a panel discussion, sex, marriage, and morality, followed by the book launch of Heir, End of Innocence. I would really appreciate your presence there.